Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. We're going to have a shortened episode because later this week we're going to have our 10th anniversary episode, but we wanted to review a few films, including Jungle Cruise, The Green Knight, and Stillwater. Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today is my fellow host, Troy Heinrichs.
What's up?
And just Troy is joining me for this one because Amanda and John are saving it all for the 10th anniversary episode where Brian Williams and Scott Clark and all the rest of us are reunited for the first time in a long time.
That will be a fun episode and cannot wait to be there and experience it. But we have to talk about these movies first. It was a big weekend. It's been a long time since we've had 3 open in one weekend, I think.
Yeah. And I 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That's what I would say. You'll find out why I mean that shortly, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf says. Remember, you can find more info at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. That's where you find everything. I do want to mention, though, normally we do mention news, but we're not really doing that. Like, this is a very weird week for us to have this, like, shortened episode plus the 10th anniversary episode. So don't build your theory or your opinion of the show around these 2 episodes. But I do want to mention that Black Widow news where Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney because that's huge. For those that don't know, she was Black Widow, and part of her salary was tied into, this is like millionaires suing billionaires, but whatever. Her salary was tied into the fact that she was supposed to make more on theatrical. She's supposed to basically get 20 million or whatever the number was. Plus, she gets a percentage of the gross from the exclusive theatrical window. Well, Disney changed that. They put it on Disney Premier Access as well as in theaters. And therefore, she makes substantially less money. Apparently, she tried to work with them. I don't know. But she sued. And then Disney retaliated and basically called her, well, not basically, they called her sad, the suit, sad and callous, and implied basically that shame on her for suing over this during COVID times when they're just trying to make the best of things over COVID times. And I gotta say, if it was Chris Evans or Hemsworth or any of the other 27 Chris's that are on staff or Robert Downey Jr., do you think they would have made a statement like that? It just seemed really shoddy.
Yeah, I think it was a complete, I'd say, a dick move on Disney's part because, yeah, we all understand why the circumstances are there, but a contract is a contract and you need to make sure you hold up those contracts because you changed the game from what the original contract was stated. Now, if you would have done it up front and said, hey, we have this situation, we got COVID, we're going to do this day and date release with Premier Access, let's restructure your deal, kind of like they do in the NFL. Training camps are open, by the way. Yay, football.
Yay, football.
But you restructure the contract. You say, hey, I know that we had an agreement. We're going to extend you a year. We're going to accelerate some sign-on bonuses. We're going to do whatever. They could have done that with ScarJo. They could have done that with even Emma Stone was talking about potentially suing for Cruella as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that Disney's behind the 8 ball here, and sometimes they're going to have to play ball, I guess, with these actors and actresses because it's not fair to them to have a deal and then just have the corporations make decisions. It'd be no different than you or I having our jobs and all of a sudden find out, that we have a whole other thing that we have to do without having a conversation first.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. And HBO Max and Warner Brothers, they had a similar problem last year, but they worked out deals with all of their talent where they negotiated payouts to them because they knew that they were losing money because they're not getting that theatrical exclusive window. But it doesn't sound like Disney did that here. And I don't know, man. I'm a corporation basically just because these fights happen all the time. Gerard Butler is suing over $10 million that he lost off Olympus Has Fallen. They're not calling him a bad guy or you're not insulting him in any way. This really felt cheap on Disney's part. Like, if you're going to sue, I mean, this kind of stuff happens in entertainment all the time whenever there's a back end deal and somebody doesn't think that they're getting the right payout and whatever. On the same token, Disney shot back like a kid in a freaking playground, man. Just like at recess, just pissed off that somebody pulled their hair.
It's a struggle all around. None of it is a good situation. It's not good for the theater owners. It's not good for the corporations. It's not good for the actors. It's just all around weird. And I think when you have things that are all around weird, conversations just need to happen.
Absolutely.
Talk first. Always talk first.
Absolutely. Speaking of things that didn't go well, let's talk about The Green Knight.
Well, The Green Knight is an epic fantasy adventure based on the timeless Arthurian legend. It tells the story of Sir Gawain, played by Dev Patel, King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew who embarks on a daring quest to confront the Green Knight, a gigantic emerald skin stranger and tester of men. So this sounds like it would be fun and cool and exciting, but it's also an A24 film. So I'm guessing, critics loved it, but audiences probably hated it, would be my initial assumption. Aaron, you saw it. What say you?
Yes. If you go look at the critic score versus audience score, it is drastically different, which is about on par. It's twofold. It's twofold. It's a David Lowery film. He did a ghost story. If you saw that, it's very similar in the vein of a ghost story. It's atmospheric. It's very lucid. It's a little dreamlike. I mean, it's kind of like you're high, whether you do drugs or not. That's basically what the movie feels like when you're watching it. It's like, this is what drugs feel. If you ever wanted to know, kids, you never been on drugs, you never tried them, go see The Green Knight. I think you'll get a good idea. But the problem I have with it is visually amazing. Absolutely. It's very stunning to look at. It's pretty. On the same token, I'm a big fan of story and I'm a big fan of pacing. And this film has neither. Dev Patel's a great actor. He does everything he can with this. But the whole concept of, which I should, I guess, explain briefly, you kind of explained it, but the Green Knight shows up on Christmas to play a Christmas game, which is basically anybody who wants to come at me, take a swing, you get my axe, and the deal is, a year from now, you got to come find me and we're going to do this dance again. It's a silly, silly plot construct because really all Gawain has to do is nothing. He literally has to do nothing and the movie ends. There's really no forced conflict there. There's no surrounding of the castle or anything saying you must come fight me or else. It's just basically a guy strolls in and said, let's play a Christmas game. Come on, take a swing. And Gawain gets a little cocky. It's a movie that's supposed to be about morality and ego and hubris. And I get that. But from that point on, it's hard to explain what the story is because the story just wanders. It's a wandering dream of a story. It's not well told. It's not well paced. It's very, it makes you think you are asleep for a big portion of it. That's how boring parts of this movie is. So visually, great, stunning, but story-wise, pacing-wise, not good, not solid, very poor.
So if I'm understanding you, it's like for people that are How I Met Your Mother fans, it'd be like
What?
a slap bet.
I don't know that
right?
one.
It'd be like the slap bet, but there'd be no context as to why the slap bet was even brought into the existence in the first place. You just have people go around hitting people, but thered be no actual purpose.
There's no reason for it. There's really no reason other than a guy shows up and says, challenge me. And then, he gets a little cocky about it and I guess challenges him. So like I said, it's a little bit to do with ego and hubris, but it's completely unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. And then, a year later, he has to go find him and complete this challenge. And it's basically his journey as he gets there, as he tries to get there. But it's so meandering and wandering and boring. I hate to use that word, but it's boring and not boring. Like I love art movies. Don't come back. I didn't get it. Oh, I got it. I just didn't want it. I wanted a movie. It isn't something where it wasn't the movie I wanted. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. But it's going to get, I knew exactly what the reviews were going to say the second I saw 5 minutes of it because it's pretty textbook.
What would you say it's similar to from the A24 repertoire? I mean, is it like a Midsummer where it's completely whacked out and strange, or is it more like Uncut Gems where it was actually kind of a gem because of the way Sandler played that? Like, what are your thoughts between?
I would probably lean more into Midsummer, but I would say Midsummer had an interesting story. It just was drug out too long. There were hints of something great there. There were some definite great moments, and the story made sense. It was just a matter of a little bit of a pacing issue. I think it was about a half hour too long. It was just a go along for the ride. And the plot never really made sense. It was really nonsensical, which I get what it's adapted from. On the same token, you still have a story to tell. You have to tell a story. Pacing is required. I understand that many people just want to embrace the moment and just go along for the ride. But I need that ride to go somewhere. I need that ride to have a point. And it's very much in the line of a Terrence Malick film, which if you know Terrence Malick, it's the exact same kind of concept. So that's what I would compare it to. More, not A24, but Terrence Malick films.
Well, and the
Tree of
funny part
Life,
about this
stuff like
movie
that.
was, yeah. And the funny part about this was I watched the trailer. Like everybody was talking about it going into the weekend as like it was the one to see. And then I watched the trailer and I was like, dude, do I have to like take drugs to like understand the story just from the trailer alone? And then when I heard you say how bad it was coming out of the film, I was amazed to see like, yeah, it's exactly what I thought it looked like from the trailer perspective. Yeah. So in this case, the trailer did a great job. Told me to stay away from it.
Yeah. I mean, I would always tell anyone, if you're really excited about something, go see it, see for yourself, judge it for yourself. Like, I'm just telling you, my opinion of it is that it was not a good movie. I can tell you, Amanda also, she's not here today, but she, our other host, she also saw it. She hated it. So it's not, like I said, everybody's going to have their own opinion. I think it is very much going to be one of those love it or hate it movies. I don't think there's much of a middle ground. I really, really feel like you're either all on board or you're not on board at all. And I was Jack in Titanic. I'm just like, just let me freeze and die. Let me out this boat.
Well, I mean, this is, we pick on Amanda a lot on the show, but this is the one time I'm going to say thanks, Amanda, because she's the one that wanted this one and forced me to go see Stillwater instead. So for Green Knight, if this was
she loves the story, and it was her most anticipated, I think, of the year, and she right. hated it. Yeah, she hated it.
She hated it. Hated it. Well, if $10 are full price of admission, what are you giving the Green Knight there, Aaron?
$3, and that's all for atmosphere and visuals. There's much to look at, just not much to indulge. Now, you and I both saw Stillwater, Matt Damon's new film, and it revolves around Bill. He's an oil rigger whose daughter has been in prison in France for 4 years for a murder she says she didn't commit. And Bill's a bit of a roughneck. He's never really came through for Allison, and now there's a lead on where Akeem, the young man Allison says killed her former lover, is holed up. Bill sets off to find Akeem, and along the way finds a chance at redemption with a helpful translator and actress in Virginie and her adorable daughter Maya. It's kind of like a daughter replacement, which is a little bit of a weird thing, but stars Matt Damon, Abigail Breslin, and Camille Cotin. So the layout here is much different than the trailer alluded to, like in contrast to The Green Knight. This is a different kind of film than it looked like. You know, this is not like a white knuckle thriller or a murder mystery, even though there are elements of that here. It's more a dramatic look at like family dynamics and missed opportunities. Would you agree with that?
100%. I was really pleasantly surprised at where I thought this was going to be, as I said in the review that's up on the website at thehollywoodoutsiders.com, that it was literally going to be 2 hours of brooding Matt Damon just kind of meandering through scenes and trying to accomplish things and really try to uncover like who was the killer and how does he set his daughter free. But really it's a journey of Bill trying to reconcile his past, at the same time trying to reconnect with his daughter. At the same time, it almost feels like he's also looking for a family. He's really trying to understand, like, how can I move forward to potentially love someone again because of the way his wife died tragically. And it's just really great to see Matt Damon take that essence of struggle and depression and channel it into something in order to come out on the other side. Although at the same time, you know, have the challenges and struggles that come out of all of his actions and decisions as well. It's a real interesting take on like, how much do we try to meddle in events, and does the meddling actually cause more harm or does it actually produce good? And seeing the juxtaposition of that through his journey, I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah. And he really goes up and down in terms of darkness. And what I find interesting about everything is that in the story construct, Bill very much is not a great dad, right? His wife passed away. He wasn't around a whole lot. He's an oil rigger. So, I mean, he was always gone. He's always, you know, basically is an absentee dad, which definitely affected Allison's upbringing and her opinions on life and why she wanted to get out of America, go to France and learn overseas and whatnot. On the same token, it's very clear that Bill is just a screw up through and through, at least from Allison's point of view, even though he tries to do his best. And I find it not funny, but I find it intriguing that they stuck with that, because I feel like too often in movies, you know, when you have a character who's painted as a screw up, gets the opportunity to do the right thing, nails it, right? He just looks like a hero right out the gate. And that doesn't happen here. Like, Bill is a screw up. I mean, that's just who he is. He makes really bad choices in life, and he continuously does so, even though he's trying to do the right thing. He just can't find the right way to do things. You know what I mean?
And I love that they established that really early in the movie too, just with a simple dinner, lunch, whatever they were having with his friend that has been helping the family. And she said that, hey, did you do my renewal for my registration for the car?
It's grandma, her grandma. Yeah.
And grandma, it was a grandma. Okay. The fact that he said that he did it, but then of course she had the envelope and caught him in his own lie, I think just shows like how much he's of a screw up he is. And even the simple stuff then escalated into how critical this is to find the information and the person who could potentially set his daughter free.
Right. And Matt Damon's obviously embracing a full-bodied Okie here. And director Tom McCarthy kind of dances around political ideology here and there. How did you feel about Damon's take on Bill as a character?
I thought it was great. I thought he really had the blue collarness down to him. He had a very soft-spoken, yet hot-tempered if he needed to be when it came up. He was very determined and very passionate about what he believed in, which I think is very much Southern Plains kind of aspect when you think about upbringing and what it means to have values and things of that nature. When he gets over to France and he's hanging out with Virginie, played by Camille Cotin, then you get this juxtaposition of like, how does he fit into this artistic, high-class society? There's a dinner sequence where she's definitely hanging out with some of the upper echelon, white collar type class, and you see Bill sitting there, and he just looks like a fish out of water the entire time. Mm-hmm. So I think Matt did a really great job trying to represent what the Southern Plains, what do you want to call it, Bible Belt type person is, yet also of the time, because this was taking place in 2013, right after the Shawnee, Oklahoma tornado, which is established right at the beginning of the episode, because this is also during the time of like the Oxycontin crisis. And so with his absenteeism from being on the oil rig, you also have the fact that, he was a little bit of an alcoholic. He was obviously doing some kind of drugs. We think it was the Oxycontin specifically because of the work that he did. Mm-hmm. So he really, channels all of that to show like how much of a depressive state he's in, but yet trying to get out of that depressive state. And how is he able to do that through this entire process of going to see his daughter in this prison at this particular moment?
Yeah, it was kind of surprising to me. Well, not surprising so much because, I mean, it's Matt Damon, and whatever you think about Matt Damon, the person, or his politics or anything else, he's a great actor. Always has been. He just has a knack for finding humanity in just about anybody. And I really like how he approached the character because I've got a lot of people that are very similar to Bill in my family. And so it was kind of important to me when I'm rolling in to see Stillwater that, I know Matt Damon is very liberal in politics. And I know that this character is very conservative in politics, or at least appears that way. So I was very concerned, like, are you going to be like just disrespectful and it's just going to be one of these bashing ceremonies? Because I don't want to watch that movie. I just don't. I have people on both sides of that fence in my family, and I think they both deserve respect. And it wasn't like that at all. I think he did treat Bill with respect. It was very much the character is written. So the fact that he was a screw up had nothing to do with his politics, just him as a person, just who he was, who the character was. And I really loved how Damon played him and loved the relationship that he had with Maya. I just found that to be a really wonderful dynamic to contrast the fractured relationship he had with his own daughter.
And it's almost like he challenges himself in that regard to say, like, can I be a better dad to Maya? But at the same time, it's almost selfish in a way too. So he's really playing off of those two angles, because he's trying to replace something that he lost with this new family, and even gets almost to the point where that's going to be a permanent thing, I think, at some point. But then obviously there's things that happen. So just watching that relationship grow, it's like, well, why couldn't you do that for your daughter? And why is your daughter in this situation? Because it seems like you're a perfectly normal guy now. So what is it that changed? And I think that's what you're really trying to understand in this particular character, is what changed in him in order to get him to this point.
Yeah, and I really love that the film is more about characters and their evolution and their choices and how they got from point A to point B. And are they going to stay at point B, or are they going to finally evolve to point C? You know what I mean? Or are they going to go back to point A? I mean, what is the evolution of the characters? Because there comes a point probably about, speaking of pacing with Green Knight, probably about hour and 15 minutes in, that you think the movie is going to be going one completely different way. It's going to be a thriller. It's going to be straightforward with that angle. And then it ends up kind of taking a side spin into family dynamics for a good half hour, 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Changes the dynamic of the film completely, because it's not what I expected. It wasn't bad in any way. It just wasn't what I expected. How did you like how the story played out in terms of, because it isn't what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I went in completely thinking it was going to be a retread of the Amanda Knox saga, right? Story, whatever you want to call it. You know, we saw it play out on the news. So it's like, well, what are they going to do here that's different? What's going to be interesting, or how are they going to spin it? And then how do you keep it interesting? Because you know that Amanda Knox eventually was, acquitted and apologized to for being in jail for 4 years, when she didn't need to be there in the first place. And so what are you going to do here? Is it going to be did she not kind of murder mystery kind of movie? Because that's what we assumed it was going to be going in, that you're going to get some extra nugget of stuff that people still think Amanda did in the real case. And when you came in and saw that it was really just about Bill and Bill's journey, I was like, oh, this is a completely different movie than I thought. And so I just let the movie happen rather than trying to make it what I wanted it to be or what I thought it was going to be. I just absorbed what I saw on screen. And because of that, I thoroughly enjoyed it a lot.
Probably still was 20 minutes too long, though. When
It was. There was definitely some parts that drug out.
So $10 full price for admission. What do you give Stillwater?
$6.50.
All right. I am right on board with.
Yeah, the screenplay, it was pretty much pretty standard fodder, pretty straightforward. But I thought the music was really great, and how they blended Southern Plains music with French Riviera and kind of combined those two styles together for the score in the background. And then just the visuals and the shots I thought were really, really great to capture, how Bill's feeling as he's driving from place to place, and just the rundownness of the area that they were in France, just to show kind of like, he's run down, this village is run down. Like, how do I get any kind of hope in this movie? Which Maya portrayed, and Maya did a great job.
And before we move on to Jungle Cruise, I want to talk about Amanda Knox. And if you weren't aware, there are people that don't follow this sort of thing, but Amanda Knox was also a student overseas who, her roommate was murdered, and Amanda Knox was convicted of the crime, said she didn't do it, and then years later find out that it was a different person that committed the crime, who was in jail the whole time, and she was still convicted because the police just didn't want to admit they were wrong. And she finally was released and was allowed to come home. But she wrote a scathing piece about how this film is taking liberties with her name, and how basing it around her life without even talking to her was both insulting and damaging to her already kind of sullied reputation. I want to know how you felt about that, because that's an interesting point that I probably wasn't sensitive to going into the movie until I read her piece, and I'm like, wow, that's true. I mean, I get where she's coming from.
Yeah, I'm of two minds of that. One being, I could totally see her point of view and how it's kind of reopening up trauma and reopening up these wounds that she had from the case, so many years later, now that it's been completely put aside. So having to relive that and be in the media again, like, I totally feel for her. At the same time, the movie itself, if somebody had never told you this is based on an Amanda Knox story, right? If those words never came out into the media or into the spotlight in any way, shape, or form, you would have no idea this is Amanda Knox related. The characters are completely different. The situation with his daughter and Lena, the Arab girlfriend, like, totally different than what actually happened in the Amanda Knox story. There's so much different that I don't think
pretty similar too, though. I mean, you got to admit, they've been going around kind of saying it's akin to the Amanda Knox saga. So I think part of this is on them for bringing it up in press as well. Or
exactly.
Maybe people are asking in that question. Maybe that's the problem.
Because the only thing that's the same is that she went to jail for a potential murder that you don't know if she did, and got out 4 years later. I mean, that's the crux of the story, right? Now, whether you want to say that's Amanda Knox or you want to say that that's Joe Schmo or Billy Bob down the street, I mean, I think that's the challenge, is that the production said that it was the basis of their idea, and therefore they should have involved her and really got her opinion.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I do think they could have not mentioned it. And for a vast majority of people, they're not going to know the difference, because a lot of people don't know that story. Believe it or not, I mean, not everybody knows about the Amanda Knox story. But the thing is like when they're going to mention it in interviews, now maybe they're being asked about it, so maybe they're just answering it honestly. But in the same token, if you're going to make something and knowingly revolve it around a well-known situation where a woman was wrongfully imprisoned for a murder she didn't commit, at the very least, communicate with her in some way or acknowledge it to her in some way that this was an idea sparked from you. Like, it's not based on your life. It's our own take on certain things. But at the same time, it's kind of related to what you went through. And I followed that case very closely. So, I mean, it definitely echoes it in many respects. And then they start throwing it around when they're doing press junkets and interviews. And I'm just like, wow, I mean, I get where she's coming from. That's got to be hard for her because for many people, they still think she's guilty, even though she was acquitted. You know what I mean? Like they think she got away with something, even though she was acquitted and the real murderer was convicted.
I was that same way because as I was looking, at the early reviews and things of that nature, I'm just like, was she acquitted? I can't remember. Like, did she get off? Did she not get off? Like, what was this? I know she got out of jail, but maybe there was something else. And so, yeah, it was definitely some gray area there for sure.
Just makes you wonder, like, should people be writing movies like this that are so close to real life events and then not paying any real respect to the real people that get hurt by doing that? You know what I mean? It would be like doing a Monica Lewinsky movie and kind of putting it or something similar to Monica Lewinsky, and then she's got to relive that all over again. Yeah,
trauma is a tough thing. You really have to be considerate of other people's feelings and work through that with them in order to understand like what is safe and what's not safe, just because you don't want to do any damage. And it's not just about giving them money for it either. Like, hey, we're going to buy the rights.
Right.
Money doesn't necessarily solve everything. People can still be impacted by it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, last movie, Jungle Cruise, The Rock and Emily Blunt.
Well, The Jungle Cruise is a movie that is based off of the ride inside of the Disney theme parks. The ride itself is actually a fun romp where you go around and the boat driver goes and tells really bad dad jokes and puns as you go through the thing. So the question becomes, how do you take literally the slowest, sleepiest ride in a theme park, Aaron, and turn it into a theatrical spectacle?
You put The Rock in it, and then you put Emily Blunt in it, and you just make magic happen. That's what I would say. You throw a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean 1, a little bit of The Mummy, mix it all together, bam, you got Jungle Cruise. That's really what it is. I think it was they had the dad jokes in here, by the way, so you would love that.
Oh, they did? Okay. That's really the key. Like, that's the ride. The whole ride is the dad jokes. So if they didn't have dad jokes in this movie, it's like immediately like, I'm not going to go see it.
Yes. And it follows Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is Frank Wolf, Emily Blunt is Lily Houghton, and Jake Whitehall is her brother, McGregor Houghton. And what is happening is Lily and McGregor are trying to find this magical flower that's basically going to change medicine forever. Like this flower has healing properties. It's very much a legend. It's a rumor. It's kind of a Indiana Jones thing where you're just looking for a myth. And there are
like an Uncharted video game story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very similar. And Lily Houghton is very much like an Indiana Jones. Like what's funny is you think that The Rock is going to be the action star, and he does get some moments, but Emily Blunt is just as formidable, if not more so, the action hero in this than The Rock is. And she does a kick-ass job with it. Like, she's perfectly cast, man. She kicks ass. And they have wonderful chemistry. He's the boat captain who she commissions to get him to this spot so she can find this flower, based around, or this tree. And it's complicated. It's weird. None of it really makes sense, but it's basically, here's the thing that they need to get to. Here's the MacGuffin that's going to save the world. They need to get to it. And then along the way, they have Nazis that are chasing him down. And of course, Jesse Plemons is one of said Nazi. He's Prince Joachim, but he's very much a Nazi. He's got his own submarine, and he kind of brings back to life some of the cursed patrons of the Amazon River and tries to use them to thwart Lily's path. That's the story.
So I know Indiana Jones is synonymous with Harrison Ford, but would you say like this could have been an Indiana Jones movie more than a Jungle Cruise movie, or does it really pay homage to the ride in the theme park more?
I mean, dude, you've been on the ride. The ride is boring as hell, right? I mean, it's something to do with your family, but it's more like, well, the kids can fit on this one, so I guess we'll knock this one out, kill some time for 15 minutes, right? Am I wrong?
True story. I actually went on the ride because I needed to build a PowerPoint in literally 10 minutes. And I literally on my phone built a PowerPoint on the Jungle Cruise and sent it off when I got off the ride.
Exactly. That's the kind of ride it is. It is not excitement. It is not, a real fantastic time. But the movie's a blast. I mean, it's very much recalibrated to be an Indiana Jones style in terms of thematic material ride. In the same token, the feel, the vibe is very much it's very much Pirates 1 meets The Mummy. I mean, except Emily Blunt is Brendan Fraser. I mean, that's really the kind of film that it is, because there are some horrific elements. There's some great special effects. There are some monsters that come out of there, but it's very family friendly. I mean, just like Pirates and Mummy were family friendly. You could take your kids to it. They're going to enjoy it, not get too scared, but there's enough cool mystical things happening to keep everybody engaged, which is what you want in a summer blockbuster. Like, it really felt like the most summer blockbustery family movie that we've seen in a long time.
Now, I know you're very much on the side of you must go see stuff in the theater, but given the fact that this is a family oriented movie, like, do you think that this would suffice paying the $30 for the premiere access on Disney Plus because it's just cheaper for 4 people to see the movie doing it that way? Or do you think this is something that was well enough, spectacle enough that it should be experienced in either the big screen IMAX or AMC Prime?
Well, come on, man. Man, theater, always theater is what I'm going to always say. It's just the way that I roll. I prefer to see something in a theater, but I will say,
be critical. Could I see it at home and it'd be fine?
Yeah. And I get there's things happening right now that make people a little more leery. Okay, fine. Of the Disney Premier Access titles that have been out there, was it Black Widow, Cruella, Raya, and The Last Dragon? Wasn't that one of them? This one, Jungle Cruise. I would say that this is the one that I would say is most beneficial from that, because, I think Cruella is kind of slanted in terms of who's going to enjoy it. I think Black Widow is kind of slanted in who's going to enjoy it. I really feel like Jungle Cruise is an all around, everybody loves it kind of movie. I don't really feel like anybody in your family is not going to enjoy it. Even grandma might like it. You know what I mean? And in the same token, your kids, if you have smaller kids, they're going to want to rewatch that a lot. So yeah, I could see the justification for it. I wouldn't do it. I would get my ass to a movie theater to see it. But if you would prefer to watch it at home, I could see the justification for it.
Well, that then for Jungle Cruise at $10 was the full price of admission. What would you give it?
Hang on, I'm not done yet.
Oh, you're not done yet.
I got more I want to mention. I want to mention like the chemistry between Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. A lot of times when I go and see a new movie that obviously is a potential franchise starter, I'm just, the whole time I'm watching it going, well, this is obviously just built so they can make 4 more of these, right? I mean, that just feels like a lot of the things that are coming out of Disney and other places these days. Rarely do I watch one and by the end I'm like, God, I just want more with those two. Like, I just think they were so fun to watch. I need more of them. They play off each other so well. I mean, he's just so dry. She's so animated. There's a lot of back and forth, and the fact that she refuses to wear dresses like women did during the time. He keeps calling her pants because she's always wearing trousers. And there's like some fun play with that. Women's dynamics are a high point of the film, but not so it's like overbearing or anything like that. Just witty asides that really work. And their back and forth chemistry, and Jack Whitehall is really good too. Their back and forth chemistry is so good. By the end of the movie, I was just like, I want more of these. Like, I want more. People go see the theater, go repeat business, go do whatever you got to do to make me get another Jungle Cruise. I never in a million years thought I'd say this in my lifetime, because I did not care about this movie coming into it. It's kind of the opposite of the Green Knight. I had low expectations, but I had a blast from start to finish and was never bored, was never disinterested, but it was just more about like just watching everybody have fun. And I needed that. I just haven't had that in a theater much lately. I needed that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
All right, so $10 full price admission. What do you give Jungle Cruise?
$8.
There you have it. Those are the 3 big ones from last weekend. I don't know if it's going to be a while before we have another big weekend like that.
I do want to mention I did see Playing God, which is a new film that's coming out on video on demand on August 6th. You'll find a written review of it on the site, but it's got Alan Tudyk in it. Alan Tudyk.
Ooh,
which you can't really go wrong with Alan Tudyk, right?
Nope, sure can't.
It revolves around these two twins, Micah and Rachel, who are basically con artists, and they find a huge mark in Ben, who's played by Alan Tudyk. And how they're going to use him to get to his money is they're going to convince him that he can have a sit down with God, because his daughter passed away years earlier. And ever since then, he has done everything he can because he wants to talk to God. He's going on different kind of missions and different kind of spiritual retreats and everything else, just trying to find God because he's desperate for answers as to what happened. So they set up Michael McKean to play God and con this guy out of his millions, because he has millions. And it's a really interesting movie. If $10 full price of admission, I give it $6. I really enjoyed it. Alan Tudyk sells the whole thing because it's a very tough plot to swallow. It is a tough plot to swallow. Like, how do you convince this guy who's obviously incredibly smart that there's a possibility he might actually be talking to God? But they do it. And I think it works very well. And it's all directly related to Alan Tudyk and Michael McKean's performances. So if you're looking for something that's a little interesting, it's got a little ideology, a little theological debate, a little philosophy, I think that's an interesting film to watch. Whew. Yeah, that's about it. I got nothing else, man. We got our 10-year anniversary coming up. We're just going to have some fun and play some games and just BS a little bit. That's going to be later this week. It's going to be Wednesday or Thursday, one of those. But I want to say thanks, everybody, for listening. You can find Troy at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter, as well as the Blacklist Exposed podcast, as well as the Hollywood Outsider. You can find me on Presenting Hitchcock, which a new episode is out, or at Aaron Smirks. And the HollywoodOutsider.com is our website. At Buy Popcorn is the Twitter. Thanks for joining me for this, Troy. I mean, this is kind of a thing we threw together just to get some reviews out there this week.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here and keep going to the movies. Hopefully we can keep the fun rolling as we move into the fall season.
Yeah, please keep the theaters open. Well, the next time you head to a theater, remember, buy popcorn.